Okay. And can you also hear me? For me, very strange because I cannot check if something really is happening. I don't know. About if you see me or whatever is happening. I see some comments. Yes, yes. But do you also hear me? Can you let me know? See you and hear you. Oh my God, somebody's saying see you and hear you. Wow. It's very strange for me to talk this way. Well, speaking about creative adjustment in difficult situations. All right. So I start to talk. I have the feeling I'm talking just to my phone. But anyway, I will try to talk. I have a wonderful preparation here. So let me shortly introduce myself. I am Frans Meulmeester. I'm from the Netherlands. And although I live here, I hardly work here. I work in many other countries. And I work as a gestalt therapist, coach, trainer, supervisor, and also in organizations. So I am a staff trainer, a guest trainer, and I was also the coordinator of the staff from this institute, Caucasian Institute. And that's my connection with this group. So let me go to my topic for today, what I've called creative adjustment in difficult situations. And it's of course related to the Corona situation. So first, shortly, my first contact with Gestalt was about 45 years ago. And a friend gave me a book of a Gestalt author and it was very nice, but immediately I was in love with Gestalt. And it was actually the freedom of thinking, the idea of responsibility, the anarchistic way of thinking, and for sure, this famous Gestalt prayer helped me. Maybe you know it, like, I do my thing, you do your thing, I am I, you are you, and I'm not in the world to fulfill your expectations. So that helped me a lot. It gave me space to breathe and to discover my boundaries. So actually, from this, I can really say it became a Gestalt way of living. So not just an approach in therapy or an approach in organization, it really became a way of living for me. And what does it mean? Sorry guys, I need to connect my phone to the battery, otherwise I will disappear soon. Sorry, I was not prepared to do it on my phone, but now I do it. So, okay. And I will put it like here. Hopefully I'm still very good visible. So, okay. So, what does it mean to have a Gestalt way of living? I will just name a few concepts that are important for me in that way. And the first concept is the concept of awareness, which means for me taking the time to really see what is important for me and also for my environment, and not only on the cognitive level, but really on the level of my emotions, of my body awareness. So to be more present in the contact. But also what I liked in Gestalt, what I learned about life is how we can block ourselves from living fully or living not complete in that sense. So it helped me to discover what is really important and meaningful for me and how I can live these values. And another concept was very important, the idea of figuring ground. What means to me to understand that what is important for me or how I perceive a situation, that is my subjective figure, my perception, but that others can have a totally different perception. And that for sure, what I was noticing in working in all these different countries and the different cultures, that what was for me so normal, so as we say, that you take it for granted, was totally different for others. So in that sense, I say many times, when I'm surprised that you are surprised that I'm surprised, then we have to do with the cultural difference, because somehow we see reality in a total different way. So again, that's about figuring ground. Of course, I also discovered my own unfinished experiences and how they influence my life, how they sometimes lead to my own patterns. And what I like a lot is the idea of responsibility. And I come back to that for sure, but responsibility means for me that we are able to give a response to situations. So in everything, the Gestalt way for sure helped me to live more healthy, to live more flexible. Now, if I go to this Corona situation and to what I call the creative adjustment, then if I look at my process, I can see that first I went into my old pattern. What means that when I'm confronted with uncertainty or I start to worry, that I withdraw and I turn inwards. For me, this is a clear pattern. It's my way to do it, and in that way, I need it. So I also allow it, because I know when I start to fight it, I will just be blocked. So now when the Corona situation started, I noticed that I was withdrawing and that I really needed to take time. And after a few days, I started to come out of this mode. And I began to find a more creative adjustment to the situation. So what I try to say is that, at least for me, it helps me if I can allow myself to have this first reaction. Maybe you can even call it my neurotic pattern. But again, when I would judge it or fight it, it would just take all my energy. But by allowing, it gives me space. Space to find myself back and space to come to more awareness. And only with this more awareness, I can come to a more creative adjustment. And in this situation of the Corona, it means that I'm more able to take the position of the observer of the situation, observe myself in the situation. And it helps me to look from a distance. I'm no longer totally identified or totally overwhelmed with the situation, with my fears, with my worries, because they were there, of course, like I think everyone had it. But I can look from a calmer position. And it does not mean that I don't have worries now or no fear, but they do not overwhelm me. I'm much more calm with it. And the look from a distance helped me also to have a broader perspective and to help me to find a sort of sense of meaning in this. And this is for me also a very important aspect, sense of meaning. For me, actually, this is an essential part of the Gestalt approach, looking for a sense of meaning. And I don't mean with that looking for an explanation, because for me, looking for an explanation is trying to find why did it happen? Why are the things happening? It's trying to find the reason or the cause for a situation. It's looking for what we call causality. And I'm not denying causality, but for me, the sense of meaning has much more to do with giving or experiencing a meaning in what is happening. In other words, how can I learn from it? How can I make it more meaningful to me? So let me give you another example, not the Corona. It's about 3.5 years ago that I had a little accident and I broke my hip. I was in another country, so of course I needed to be taken home. I was in the hospital and thank God they could repair it. And for sure, the first day, of course, I was overwhelmed, I was emotional, I was shocked, and I had a lot of support from my family, from friends. So it was a difficult situation, but from the beginning, I was able to, again, to take this look from a distance and to go to my awareness. And I realized that this situation of the broken hip was actually a huge lesson or challenge in surrendering. To be clear, there is sometimes a problem with the English word surrendering, because I notice sometimes also in the trainings that people think that surrendering is the same as giving up. But that is not the same. For me, surrendering means that you face the facts and that you accept the situation. So it's a much more active attitude towards a situation. Well, for me, giving up is passive. Giving up is saying, oh my God, there's nothing to do. I can do anything. Why is God doing this to me? So it's more putting yourself in a sort of a victim position. And giving up is in that sense losing in a way. But in the case of my broken hip, I realized and I perceived it as a challenge to practice this surrendering. I knew, okay, this will take me at least 3 months to be at home, to take time for my recovery, because if I don't do that, I will pay the bill later. I will pay the, let's say, the invoice later, because I love to walk, and I've done many walks in the past. The walk to Santiago de Compostela, I walked in the mountains a lot. I even walked from my home in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, to Rome. That was 3 months walking, about 2,000 kilometers. So I knew that if I don't surrender to this situation, it's possible that I will never be able to walk again. So in that sense, the meaning that I perceived was this lesson. I did not ask myself, or I did not ask God, why me? For me, actually, sorry to say, it's a very strange and maybe even a stupid question. Why me? For me, the question is much more, why not me? Why not you? Who am I that this cannot happen to me? Or who are you that this cannot happen to you? It's something I learned from a cancer patient. I've worked many years with cancer patients, and one time when I was leading a group, there was one person who constantly said, why me, why me? And one of the other patients suddenly said, why not you? And for me, this was really an eye-opener, as we say, because I also thought, yes, why not you, or why not me? So in that sense, for me, it was clear. I'm not busy with the question why. Of course, I could see possible reasons why I broke my hip. That's something else. But for me, it was much more interesting in my life to ask myself, how can I deal with this situation and what can I learn from it? Learning in the sense of how can I grow? So not in the sense of what did I do wrong? Of course, sometimes that is very important to look at, but much more, what can I learn from this? How can I maybe even grow from this experience? So I think that actually every situation in our life can help us to grow. It's not that I think that there's a sort of hidden lesson in what is happening in situations, but I can turn the situation in a learning experience. That is something else. Some of you will recognize the existential philosophy here. The freedom, but also the responsibility that we have as a person to give a meaning to a situation. And I think many of you will know Jean-Paul Sartre as an example of the existentialists, who says we always have the freedom but also the responsibility to give our answer, our meaning to a situation. So honestly, I don't know if things happen for a reason. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. What I do know is that I want to be careful with causality. That some people say, oh, you have this because. Oh, you have this because. I want to be careful. That is, for me, it's too simple, one-to-one direction. As if there's always a clear A that is the cause of B. I don't think so. But I'm not sure, of course. And I understand that people really would like to have a why. It was even Nietzsche who said, he who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. But for me, again, this why, in the sense of looking for the cause, looking for the explanation, is not so important. It's much more for me this looking for what can I learn from it. But I know, again, some people really need it. And I hope I do not hurt some people who are listening now or watching. Some philosophers even say that this is the reason why we invented gods, why we created gods, so that God would be the explanation of things that are happening. Some cultures even have many gods. In the Georgian culture, it's mainly one god, as far as I know. But in that way, we have God, that we can say this is the will of God, or this is the punishment of God. So God becomes the answer to our question. For me, really, I'm not going into the question, is there a God or not a God? I don't know. Who am I? But I just don't know. It's just that in my life, I cannot find the answer in God, so to say. And I have an almost unlimited, really, almost unlimited need to find the answer myself. It's really something I learned from my father when we were sitting at the table and we were looking at something that we did not understand. My father always said, okay, go pick a book and look for the answer. And we had this huge encyclopedia. Now today we have, of course, Wikipedia, but then we had this encyclopedia, and we always started to look. He trained me, so to say, in if you don't know something, look for the answer. Don't just believe another one. Just don't believe what people are saying. Look for the answer. So that's what I mean. I had this almost unlimited need to find the answer myself, to give my personal answer to a situation. And that is what I like a lot in Gestalt and in existentialism. As one of the roots of Gestalt, it challenged me to find my personal answer, my personal response to a situation. So that's the word responsibility. Some of you know that we always say responsibility is actually the ability to respond. And for me, let's be clear, if God is part of your answer, I will be the first one to respect that. But again, it's not in my life. So let me go again to the corona situation and apply some of these things that I'm saying so far to this situation. Because the corona situation is also challenging me again to find my creative adjustment, to find my answer to the situation. And part of my creative adjustment, my creative response, is the idea of field theory. And I think that some of you are familiar with that. Some of you will say, oh, what is he talking about now? No, this is not working well. I will keep it in my hands. I'd like to say a few words on field theory because I love it in Gestalt, and you will notice that I'm really fascinated by this theory. As I said before, we can look at reality from a causality perspective. In that case, there is a clear A, or maybe an A and a B, that are the cause for, let's say, B or C. There's a clear reason. There's a clear explanation. So in the corona situation, we can say, aha, there is a clear A behind the corona situation. And there are theories going around. This market in China where they sell this food or animals, others say it was developed in a laboratorium in Wuhan and it spread out. Even others have fantastic conspiracy theories that the Chinese did it on purpose just to ruin our economy. And if we believe Trump, we can think of other wonderful reasons that it all can happen. But from a field perspective, it becomes totally different. Then we are not looking at one or two clear reasons. The field theory goes from the idea that there is always a lot of elements influencing each other. There is not just this A and B, but these A and B are part of a wider situation. And better to say maybe wider interaction. And you cannot clearly indicate, aha, this is the one that causes that. No, it's constantly a process where A and B are interacting with each other, but also with the whole wider situation. So it's an ongoing interaction where all these parts interact with each other, with the whole. And the complicated issue is that, and really this is, sorry to say it, super fascinated and super complicated, because these elements create the whole, and at the same time they are created by the whole. And I hope you understand, with causality we can never explain it. And if there are students listening now, they will remember that I always use this wonderful picture of the Swiss drawer Escher, who has a wonderful drawing where one hand is drawing another hand, and this second hand is actually drawing the first hand. Well, it's also very paradoxical. But for me, field theory will say there's a lot going on which interact with each other. And the meaning is not so much in the elements. The meaning is much more in the whole. So it's a very holistic perspective, so to say. I hope you can still follow me. So let me use a metaphor, an image that maybe can help it a bit. So let's look at the sea. Really, 20 years ago, I was in a sailing boat and I've crossed the ocean. And every night I was on deck. The other two guys were sleeping and I was awake and I was watching the sea. And again, it was super fascinating. Because if you look at the sea as a whole, then we know there are many different elements. Of course, we have the waves, but we also the water below the waves. We have the stream, we have the bottom of the sea, we have the wind, we have the fish or other animals moving in the sea. And we have, of course, the wind, the clouds, the sun, the moon. Oh my God, there's so many elements. And all these elements influences each other. And you cannot say, aha, that is the reason for the storm. Because it's not only the wind. It's also the moving of the sun. It's also the moving of the moon. Because when the stream is different, the waves will be different. So all these elements influence each other and are influenced by the whole. And none of the elements is the only reason for a storm or a wild sea. And it's exactly the interaction. So I think that you can see how much I'm fascinated. And I don't want to go deeper now. Come to a Gestalt Institute and they will almost kill you with it because it's so important. But I just want to bring it because for me also this corona situation is part of a bigger, larger whole, of a larger situation. And when I try to give meaning to the corona situation, when I'm trying to see what it brings to us, what can we learn from it? How can we, as human beings, maybe grow from it? Then honestly, I think sometimes maybe it's Mother Nature as a whole. Maybe it's Mother Nature that is just calling us. Is trying to make us clear that we as human beings can learn a lesson from this. I don't know the lesson yet. Of course, I have my ideas. And again, I'm not saying this is the one and only reason that is there. But I just think that the function or lesson of what is happening with the corona maybe has to do with Mother Nature calling us to come down. And what do I mean by coming down? Is coming down from our throne, from this throne of superiority, to realize again, because in the past people realized very well, to realize again how we as human beings are part of Mother Nature and not standing somewhere above or that we are superior to Mother Nature. Maybe Mother Nature is trying to tell us to restore or revise the mistake that we made maybe the past 2000 years, but for sure also the past 200 years with all our scientific thinking. The mistake that we as mankind started to think that we are superior to nature, that God has created nature just for us, that we can use it. And we did use it. That we can just benefit it, instead of realizing that we are a part of this total interaction, of this total balance. We are part of a huge process. For me, we are exactly like the waves in the sea. And the waves are part of the sea. And they are just temporary, visible, like human beings. Let's be honest. We live maybe 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and then we're gone again, and somebody else will take over. So we are like the waves. We come up, we become visible, and we disappear again. So each wave, each of us is unique. But at the same time, we're still part of the sea. And thank God there is no wave that thinks that he or she is better than the rest of the sea. And I think maybe there human beings have made a mistake. I need to take my next page. So I think really that human beings have started to think, I am better than nature. I'm superior to nature. And in many ways, we started to abuse Mother Nature, just for our benefit, economically, or just for fun, because we like to shoot an elephant or we like to shoot a tiger, to make a picture. Look how good I am. And that makes me think that, like in every whole, we call it a gestalt, a meaningful whole. In every meaningful whole, there's a sort of balance. And if there's a disbalance, the total field, organism and environment, will try to restore that balance. Will try to find a new creative adjustment, a new possible way to survive. So my friends, I really think that this whole coronavirus is part of this bigger field. And it's the total field that is calling us to be more humble, to have more respect for Mother Nature, and to realize that we are part of the field, just like any other creature. We're not superior. We're part of it, and I think it's time to realize that again. In that sense, I always admire and respect people like the Native Americans, people like the Aboriginals, the Native Australians, people like from many shamanistic cultures, people who live very close to nature, how much they respect and live in balance and in peace with Mother Nature. I think we can learn a lot from them. So when we are willing to learn the lesson, this whole corona situation can become also a meaningful event. See what is already happening. The air around us has never been so clean during the past 50 or maybe even 100 years. But for sure, I think people who live in big cities like I do, but I think of Kathmandu, I see that some of my friends are online. If I think of Tbilisi, if I think of other bigger cities, my God, the air in the cities have never been so clear. The pollution around us, but also the silence. Some people say, wow, you can hear birds. Yes, they were always there, but again, now we hear them. So I think if, as a consequence of the corona situation, our creative adjustment as mankind could be that we start much more, or to become much more aware of our position in the chain of life, of our humble contribution to the planet. I think it would be fantastic. So yes, coming back to my title, my creative adjustment in this difficult situation, my creative adjustment or my creative response to the corona situation is that more than before, I became aware of my own contribution to the pollution, to my own over-consuming, and of course, to my own patterns in relation to nature. So in a way, I'm thankful for the corona. Not, of course, not for all the people that have died. Of course not. I'm not an idiot. Okay, I'm sometimes crazy, but not an idiot. I mean, of course, there's terrible. For every person who has lost dear friends, family members by the corona, it's terrible. But if we see it in a bigger perspective, then I say, yeah, maybe we can be thankful. I see a possibility to grow in coming out of this. I see potentials and opportunities. So this crisis, like every crisis, is not only negative. I think that every crisis in our life has, of course, a painful side. We lose something or we are confronted with something painful. But at the same time, it's also a chance to start something new. If we are able to see or find these potentialities, the possibilities, and if we are able to have the courage to go for it. In that sense, for me, life is an invitation. I really mean it. I always quote, and that is now 30 years ago, I think, that I called my own office, my own practice, life is an invitation. And I think that this crisis is maybe also one of the, an invitation, but maybe one of the biggest invitation that we can get. So please, let's not turn down Mother Nature. Let's not say no to the invitation of Mother Nature. Let's think about what we can learn, what you can learn from this crisis, how you can give it meaning. So as I saw on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I agree, so let's not go back to normal, because maybe normal was exactly the problem. I think we need to move on and find a new one. So I wish you all the best. Take care, stay for sure healthy and safe. And there's where I want to leave it. So I really hope you enjoyed it. And I'm very curious if it's on the site. Thank God I see a lot of comments, so people can hear me, people can see me. But I always find it difficult to say something like this without having eye contact with the people who are there. But okay, I really hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. I close the session now. Thank you for being there.